Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Joseph Lopez. Let's take a look at the headlines. U.S. Vice President signs Trade Investment Framework Agreement for Caribbean Community. Trinidad and Tobago and the United States have bilateral talks. And the launch of Persons with Disability National Awareness and Education Campaign. In our top story, today marks a historical day for Trinidad and Tobago as U.S. Vice President Joe Biden signed on behalf of his country a Trade Investment Framework Agreement of Caribbean Community that he says will give us all a vehicle to overcome specific practical barriers to trade and investment. The U.S. Vice President was addressing the media at a press conference at the Diplomatic Center. U.S. VP President Joe Biden arrived in Trinidad and Tobago, where he met with other regional leaders on his 20-hour visit to the island nation. Mrs. Passand Bissessar held talks with VP Biden and Caribbean Basin regional leaders at a major meeting at the Diplomatic Center in St. Anne's. Addressing reporters, U.S. VP Joe Biden says the meeting was open and frank, even when they disagreed. In addition, he says the discussions were extremely fruitful and covered regional security, trade, energy and human and social development, and a Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, TIFA, between CARICOM and the United States that was signed.
Our goal is not simply growth, but it's growth that reaches everybody. And we spoke today about everything from anti-poverty measures to support for small businesses to greater opportunities and protections for all citizens, regardless of their gender and regardless of their sexual orientation. And we'll continue to invest with you on education and innovation. We had a significant discussion at lunch with a bunch of us. It was impromptu but somewhat detailed about the strategies that exist in your countries and mine to improve educational access, include educational excellence and access to higher education.
He said they also spoke about how to lower cost of energy and increase the share that come from renewable energy.
The United States and many other countries are working together on this, looking to invest in connected regional grids to create economies of scale and renewable energy, economies of scale that are driven by renewable energy. Last week, we signed an MOU with Trinidad Tobago to launch a Renewable Energy Research Center here in Trinidad Tobago for the Caribbean writ large.
Citizen security and drug trafficking were also high on the list of things, he says, that were discussed with the Prime Minister and other regional leaders.
That's why in 2009 we launched the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. And that's why even in the time of tight budgets in my country, we're increasing our investment, which already stands at over $200 million. And even as we gather today, our law enforcement agencies are taking part in joint Tradewinds security exercises hosted by St. Lucia.
Prime Minister Kamala Passand Bissessar says U.S. VP Joe Biden's visit marks that of high stature and thanked him and his delegation for a visit that she says was rushed in some regards. She noted his rededication and commitment to continue working with Trinidad and Tobago and the CARICOM region.
The very fact that Vice President Biden is here in the region is a testimony to the fact that the United States remains a very strong ally of the CARICOM, and we continue to be partners together in development of the region and of the Americas.
The regional leaders then fixed their signatures to the Trade Investment Framework Agreement between the United States of America and Caribbean communities. It is the revision of an agreement that was signed in 1991, which takes an account of the multilateral trading environment created by the World Trading Organization, WTO, as well as changes in the regional environment brought on by CARICOM and CSME. This allows them to respond to the rapidly changing global environment in which people relationships take place. Among the regional leaders for the mini-summit are President of Haiti and current CARICOM chairman, Michel Joseph Martelly, and President of Guyana, Donald Ramuta. Bilateral talks between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States and multilateral talks between CARICOM and the U.S. have been completed at the Diplomatic Center during the visit of Vice President Joseph Biden to the country.
The Diplomatic Center was the center of attention on Tuesday as several CARICOM leaders converged to join Trinidad and Tobago in engaging in high-level talks with U.S. Vice President Joseph Biden. The historic visit to Trinidad and Tobago will allow regional issues to be raised and discussed with the U.S. Vice President that can foster greater relations with the United States and this country and the region by extension. Before the arrival of Vice President Biden, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar engaged in multilateral talks with her regional counterparts to discuss the issues of priority that were to be brought before VP Biden.
The meeting is going to be very short. There is not enough time to go deeply into broad issues and major discussions. And we, therefore, as I said to my colleagues up there a while ago, must look at what are the issues that are, in fact, before the American public at this particular time as critical issues. We identify two major issues, the issues of security and immigration.
With consensus reached, it was now time for the arrival of the guest of honor. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar greeted Vice President Biden and introduced him to her government colleagues who were to form part of the bilateral discussions between this country and the U.S. Once inside, the Vice President signed the guest book and exchanged gifts with the Honorable Prime Minister. Then, it was down to business. The bilateral meeting between this country and the U.S. is said to be important in the charting of a way forward between both countries and the addressing of common issues. Minister of Energy, Senator the Honorable Kevin Ramnarine, spoke of what was high on the agenda for him.
The whole issue of the greater use of energy to relieve the economic burden of the Caribbean will be on the agenda, not only for the bilateral but for the multilateral meeting with the CARICOM heads.
The multilateral talks between the CARICOM leaders, as well as the Dominican Republic President and the U.S. Vice President, took place behind closed doors. It was in this private meeting that the regional leaders urged the United States of America to support the Arms Trade Treaty that was adopted by the United Nations on April 2, 2013, that establishes common international standards for the regulation of international trade in conventional arms. The leaders called on the U.S. to use its influence to promote the signing, ratification, and implementation of the treaty, as well as to provide technical and other resources to assist CARICOM member states in the implementation of the treaty. When Vice President Biden departs Trinidad and Tobago, he will fly to Brazil, where he will complete the three-nation Latin American tour, which began in Colombia on Sunday. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Empowering small and medium enterprises. When we come back, stay with us. Welcome back. Businessmen from the Chaguanas Chamber of Commerce got more acquainted with the use of ICT practices in their enterprises when the Chamber partnered with the Ministry of Science and Technology, along with Columbus Business Solutions, for the business seminar titled Empowering Small and Medium Enterprises by Effectively Harnessing ICT Cloud Services. On hand was Science and Technology Minister Dr. Rupert Griffith, who noted of the importance of moving towards an ICT-driven business and trade sector.
The harnessing of technology for the purpose of developing small businesses in the current business environment starts with moving forward with the times. In doing so, the Ministry of Science and Technology is partnered with the Chaguanas Chamber of Commerce, along with Columbus Business Solutions, in creating a new and innovative way of making business easy. Science and Technology Minister Dr. Rupert Griffith applauded the central business sector for taking the initiative by introducing the ICT cloud services to its members.
ICT is the backbone of economic development, and it is the platform on which this current administration is building our economic development. The CCIC clearly appreciates the potential for development which information and communication technology presents. And this is evident in the effort the Chamber has put into this morning's program. Mr. Ali, you and the executive of CCIC are to be commended. It is the platform which government believes will diversify the economy from one that relies heavily on Trinidad and Tobago's gas and oil reserves to one that is service-driven. ICT clearly, therefore, plays a pivotal role for the social and economic transformation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Through the implementation of this, business is expected to become easier for persons looking to make transactions from the comfort of their homes instead of being stuck in traffic for long hours. Chaguanas Mayor Orlando Naguesa underscored the importance of technology in doing business and making it practical to specialty service providers.
Technology is always improving, and it's good to see that we can organize ourselves because learning starts in the womb and ends in the tomb. So it's always good to keep on learning and understanding the technology. Minister Griffith says the introduction of such services falls into government's wider plans of fast-forwarding the growth of the ICT sector in Trinidad and Tobago.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago, together with the Ministry of Science and Technology and other ministries and agencies, have been encouraging the accelerated transformation of Trinidad and Tobago into a knowledge-based society. Information and Communication Technology, or ICT, plays a pivotal role in this trust and forms one of the 7 interconnected pillars that form government's framework for sustainable development.
iGovTT is charged with the responsibility of developing the ICT sector and its use by key stakeholders for the socio-economic transition and development of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean region. Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
Young residents of Gasparillo can now enjoy the services of the On With a Job training program, which recently opened an office in their area.
Residents of Gasparillo have welcomed the opening of the On the Job training program sub-regional office. The office was opened on Friday by the Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training and is a prime addition to the sub-regional offices in Debe, Faizabad, Point Fortin, Point Lisas, Princestown, Rio Claro and Sangre Grande. Minister Karim says the office will be opened to all and called on residents to utilize it accordingly.
I want this office to be utilized to its maximum. There's an open door policy here. People must come in. They must be referred to wherever they can be referred to. This must be a door of hope that you are opening in Gasparillo. This must be a door of opportunity. This must not be a place where we turn off people or turn them back. This must be a place where you must listen, where you must learn, and where you must help people to earn when you listen and you learn.
The Honourable Minister believes that the placement of such an office will assist in reducing the country's inflation rate.
You might ask, well, what does unemployment and youth employment have to do with inflation? Well, if you were to go into certain categories of employment, for example, in the agriculture sector or manufacturing, and you produce significant, as I'm looking now at a vehicle going down the road with a tray full of watermelon, it is basically the market-driven forces, supply and demand. So that the more that you produce, the more supply there is. In terms of the demand situation, prices will fall. So that you have the reduction of inflation. And when you have the reduction in inflation, you have an increase in the purchasing power, what you could buy. So therefore, you improve the quality of your life.
Minister Karim says the office must go a step further in the way it assists its clients.
This office must take an inventory of all the people here who have businesses and must visit them on a personal basis, must talk with them, must ask them whether they need trainees. We are hearing that there's a labor shortage, and that's because we are getting to full employment. This country has never seen full employment ever. And this is a point for us, for this office, to make sure that our boys and girls, young and not so young, can come here and be assisted.
To ensure that persons enter a job under the program that is in line with his or her qualifications, Minister Karim says a decision was taken to launch OJT Sectorial, which branches off into OJT Medical, OJT Media, OJT Agriculture, and soon OJT Legal and OJT Energy. The Gasparillo Sub-Regional Office is located near to the constituency office of the Member of Parliament for Tabaquite, which will see both enjoy a close relationship. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Coming up after the break, netball and our sports report. Stay with us. Welcome back. Trinidad and Tobago secured top honors at the recently completed NORCECA Women's Second Round Group 1 qualifier and advanced to third round of the qualification of the 2014 World Championship. The Calypso Spikers also captured 8 of the 9 individual awards up for grabs. And here's Wayne Cunningham with more.
Trinidad and Tobago's women volleyballers got past a gritty Barbados 25-18, 20-25, 25-17, 25-20 to register 3 games to 1 triumph in the NORCECA Women's Second Round Group 1 qualifiers to the 2014 World Championship. The tournament was contested at the University of the West Indies Sports and Physical Education Center at St. Augustine and also featured Anguilla and Honduras, with the latter grabbing 3rd spot in the tourney. Going into the final match, TNT and Barbados had already secured their passage to the 3rd round of NORCECA qualification after ending the round-robin series as the 2 top teams. But despite an improvement on their round-robin performance, the Bajans were no match for the Calypso Spikers in the final. Leading the way for the host was Captain Crystal Dell with 20 points, 18 of which were kills and 2 aces, while Shannon Thompson added 19, inclusive of 13 kills and 5 service aces, while Sinead Jack registered 10 points. The locals also dominated in the individual honors, with only Honduran setter Maria Barahona taking the prize for her category. TNT Shannon Thompson was the tournament's best scorer, as well as spiker. She also captured the award for the best server. Sinead Jack was the best blocker, while Courtney May Clifford was adjudged the best digger, best receiver, and best libero. The most valuable player for the tournament was Shannon Thompson. The Trinidad and Tobago Volleyball Federation has more top-class action planned with the Caribbean Volleyball League starting on Thursday at UB Spec. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
When we come back, Disability National Awareness. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. President Anthony Carmona says greater awareness towards persons living with disabilities is needed. Speaking at the launch of the Social Integration of Persons with Disability National Awareness and Education Campaign, he called on the public to be more sensitive to their needs.
A greater sensitivity to the needs of persons living with disabilities is required among citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. This was the view shared by His Excellency President Anthony Carmona. Speaking at the launch of the Social Integration of Persons with Disability National Awareness and Education Campaign, the President expressed a dire need for their rights to be recognized and equity to be established across all borders.
The role of the non-governmental organization must not be that of scoring points, but rather of meeting real needs. These 2 organizations are committed to creating a future in which all persons have genuinely equal access to the resources and opportunities that our nation and the rest of the world have to offer. A future in which all persons will develop their full potential in a culture defined by inclusion and respect for the rights and freedoms of all. They must not be viewed as objects of charity, requiring medical treatment and social protection, but as valuable individuals with rights and freedoms who are capable of making decisions for their lives based on their free and informed consent, as well as being active members of society.
The campaign, organized by the National Center for Persons with Disabilities, NCPD, and the Caribbean Kids and Families Therapy Organization, is sponsored by Spanish-based oil company Repsol, who has lent support and invested $1 million in the campaign. While the main objective of the campaign is to sensitize the public on what being disabled means, CEO of the NCPD, Dr. Beverly Beckles, in her address says this was pivotal in changing the perception of disabled persons.
The overarching goal is to impact the culture at every level, becoming a catalyst for transformation towards highly inclusive society. In particular, we wish to see Trinidad and Tobago ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Beyond this, we are expecting that with increased public awareness on disability, there will be improvement in attitudes to and treatment of persons with disabilities by members of this nation.
The president added that this sensitizing was needed not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but a wider Caribbean in accordance with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities.
But unlike some of our CARICOM partners, such as Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Haiti, and most recently Barbados, we are yet to join the 130 countries that have ratified this convention. This campaign, aimed at forging in our nation a culture in which persons with disabilities are included and respected, is most timely.
He made a strong appeal to citizens to be more mindful of their fellow citizens living with disabilities.
We cannot demand standards of those in exalted positions, but not be prepared to abide by those very standards at ground zero. Yet another example is the inconsiderate and uncaring attention where able citizens regularly park in spots, in public places, in the malls, designated for the elderly and differently abled.
Social Development Minister Dr. Glenn Ramadasinghe has designated 2014 as the Year of the Disabled. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
And that story brings us to the end of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Joseph Lopez. Thank you for watching.